Hey guys, welcome back to MasterGamingVR. There aren't enough scoundrels in your life, so we're going to take a look at Orbus VR's latest class, the Scoundrel. It uses a 6-shooter pistol and a deck of 6 playing cards to put out medium-range DPS. Now, I was really hoping for a melee class for the 8th and final class reveal for Orbus VR in the new Reborn expansion, but we got the Scoundrel, and after toying around with it for a few hours, I'm actually very happy with it. So your first, the first thing that we're going to go over is your weapon. You have a pistol, and the varying types of pistols that you get are just pistol T1B at the moment. I'm not sure if these are final names. They don't really look like final names. But just various T1Cs, so not a whole lot of distinction in the naming convention. And this is the only model that we have at the moment. It is like I said, a 6-shooter revolver style pistol. As you shoot, you'll notice that you have what they're calling ammo, or at least in the blog post they called ammo. It looks more like just a mana bar right there. As you shoot, you deplete mana from the mana bar. The faster you shoot, the more mana you have. If you have no mana, you can't shoot. And then you are sort of stuck at this slower attack speed. So you kind of have to manage when are you going to put out burst damage and when are you just going to be a little bit more consistent. One of the things that I found was it was very easy to miss a moving target. And since you have this bar, if when the target is stationary, you unload into them, and then they start doing their running all over the map thing, the tank moves, it starts following them, you calm down, you stop shooting, you let this refill, and then you shoot again. So, it's an interesting mechanic that it just sort of regens with your, as if it were a mana bar. The other thing that you can do just straight with the pistol here is if you hold down the trigger, you'll see that I consumed 3 shots and my mana bar filled back up. I wish that there was some sort of notification that you were doing this, but you can charge a shot. You can charge a shot with 3 rounds. There needs to be some sort of like glowing effect, vibration on the controller, something to indicate that you have a shot charged, and you'll see that this will do quite a bit more damage. So 2,701 versus my regular 900 attack crits for 1,350. So it did like double crit damage, and you can just charge it. It doesn't take very long. 1, 2, 3, charged. 1, 2, 3. Now this will also that apparently didn't get all the way up there. This is also an interrupt. So you can see that briefly they get the stun status. It is not enough to actually stun it for any meaningful amount of time, but it will interrupt a cast. So every class has its stun mechanic. This is the Smuggler's, that charged shot, and that was a really nice crit on a charged shot. So you can put out a lot of damage just with your auto attack. Not as impressive as the Paladin at full 5 pips just waggling away, but I digress. So, the next mechanic that I am going to want to talk about is bullet curving. So, you don't necessarily just shoot straight. You can aim down the sights, and there's a little sight here, and it will shoot where you're aiming, but you can also, if you are moving, you can curve your shots. And if you curve your shot correctly, that didn't actually do it. It's not going to give me the buff. There we go. You can see this little buff right here, which is the showing off buff, and while that buff is active, you will do increased damage. You can see I'm doing an extra 83 points of damage than what I normally would without the buff. Now most people, I think, are going to try to curve it like that, and you can get a decent curve if you stay at the appropriate range, but consistency, I'm doing the exact same motion. There we go. And it's really hard to get consistent and to get it to curve enough to actually grant you the showing off buff. So what I found initially for longer range pulls, going up and down worked best for me. And I did this for a while. But you can see that it's not super great at finding the range. And maybe I'm just bad at it. There's always that. But I found this to be a bit more consistent than trying to do it side to side to side. Then later, I discovered while actually grouping with somebody and I could keep them at a good medium range, I discovered what works best for mid-combat. And this is what I personally am going to be doing in dungeons, and I invite you to try. Pretend you're Han Solo, right? You've got your blaster on your hip right here, and you're just, Han Solo, Billy the Kid, whatever. You're going to pull it out of the holster and fire. So just out of the holster and fire. So you pull the trigger down here and just flick it up. You can see that I'm hitting every time, and each one of these is applying the buff. There's occasionally I release it too soon and it goes into the ground, but for the most part, I can consistently, reliably get a good, strong curve on it to where I can keep that buff going. And there's not too much that, you saw that one that shot off to the side, there's not too much of that. And you don't need to do this every single time, right? You do it once, you shoot, you empty your mag, you do what you're going to do with your cards, it wears off. Well, it wears off because I killed it. It wears off, you do it again. And then you lay into it. You lay into it some more. You shoot it a little bit more. The buff wears off. And you just apply it again. It's super easy, super simple to just flick it. And I feel like it gets you into that Scoundrel pose, that Han Solo, I'm going to shoot pose, because you're like, oops, that went a little high, went a little off to the side. And you're sort of in that pose, and I just found myself doing that, and I'd be like, huh, and then the whole fight would be me doing this in that sort of iconic Han Solo style pose. So, anyways, that is what I feel is going to be the best mechanic for doing the showing off. It's consistent, it's simple, it's easy, good muscle memory. But we are going to move on. So that's the pistol. That's pretty much everything with the pistol. Your regular shot, your ability to curve shots, showing off, and your charge shot. All very useful tools in their own right. You also have your deck of cards here. And you can do a few things with the deck of cards. You grab it with the grip button, and you pick up the cards, and you can either store it on your belt. You can store one card on your belt here, or you can take the card and you can throw it up and activate it. This is a good one for demo purposes because this is an armor debuff. If I shoot our little buddy here, you'll see that he has received a debuff and he is now taking a little bit more damage. Not a whole lot, just an extra 18 points of damage, but that's for everybody, so not just you. While we're on that topic, the showing off buff, you deal extra damage. That extra 58 points is just for you, not for anyone else. Only the smuggler that applied it. You are getting a little bit of showing off. I almost feel it would be better if the smuggler received the buff, as if it was a buff rather than a debuff, but that's beside the point. So, we looked at that. That one was Card of Flint. So that was Card of Flint. This, I believe, is Card of Ash. And so Card of Flint, your next shot weakens the target's defense. Card of Ash, your next shot has a greatly increased critical strike chance. So we throw this up here, and this is hard to determine if this is Card of Ash or Card of Fire, and you'll see why. So this is greatly increased critical shot chance. So we shoot him, and we didn't get a crit. So that card, yeah, I'm not too thrilled about it. Doesn't really seem super useful. And this is the other card. Looks almost identical. It is I believe this is the Card of Fire, and the Card of Flame. Your next shot deals greatly increased damage. So if we go ahead and shoot, you'll see 1350. And my crits are, I don't believe, the crits are 1350. So, was this a crit? Was this increased damage? It's hard to say. This is not an extensive, exhaustive guide. That'll come later because a lot of this stuff will probably change. Some of it may not even be working. I just wanted to get something out there. So, one of those is the Card of Flame, and one of them is the other one, the Card of, what did I say that was? The Card of Ash. Okay, so some hardware glitching out there. Had to turn the controller off and on about that. Sorry about that cut. So where were we? We were on cards. So this card is the Card of Vines, and contrary to what its name would imply, this does not root or snare. It poisons. You will get 8 ticks of poison off of the Card of Vines. Right. So at about 450 each. That'll be important later. Remember that. 8 ticks, 450. This is the Card of Light. I don't really see how this implies Card of Light out of this. And you'll see that I'm having to really look at these oddly. Beta is beta right now, which is why I'm not doing a full, in-depth look at this. Just sort of a quick, high-level overview. Well, quick. This is the Card of Light. The Card of Light, your next shot heals yourself for the damage done to the target. So if you do not have any damage to yourself, there's no indication that this did anything. So you heal yourself for a portion of the damage dealt. That is your sustainability. Not much else to go into there. So that goes over your basic card functions. However, there is more to this. In addition to being able to store these later and have a card primed and ready. And I actually don't think we got a chance to go over the blue one. And then have a card in your hand. So you can have 3 cards at the ready. You can shoot that one, throw this one up there, throw that one up there, and fire. And grab another one. So you can unload 4 cards in very quick succession, even with that cooldown that we have there. And yeah, I feel like we didn't go over the Card of Ice, so let's go ahead and get these cards out here and grab a Card of Ice. And if you throw the cards up there, they will be overwritten if you throw another card up there. So you can lose your cards. You do have to rotate through all 6 of the cards before you can start getting new cards again. So once I've gotten this blue card out of this deck of 6, I've gotten it. That's it. The end. I won't get a blue one again unless I do something special or I use up all 6 cards. So this is the Card of Ice, and it just applies the chilled debuff. And either my understanding of this debuff is wrong or it's not working. It does not slow the enemy's movement speed whatsoever. And maybe it's an attack speed debuff, I'm not sure. Like I said, this is a high-level overview, not an in-depth, and I believe that goes beyond what I want to do here today. So, we have our Card of Flame, yes? If we were to grab a card and hold trigger, we will burn that card to add additional effects to the next card that we use. And there are 3 different additional effects. This, I believe, is potency, which I'm not entirely certain is working at the moment. So we got our crit hit right there. If we were to take this card and burn it, you will see that it has a purple debuff. And we're going to go over to our newbie buddies over here to test this one out, because it's a little bit difficult to see on... Oh, looks like we've got quite a few people here, so we might have to hunt around for a good cluster. Okay, so we managed to find a group of targets that is not being actively attacked. So, the purple sparkly bits with a status inflicting card, like the Card of Vines, will then spread that debuff to others. And I will shoot the one Staff Rusher, and you can see that all of them now have the poison debuff. Very strong, very powerful, very much me dying. So, that is the spread. Very powerful, very dangerous. Gets us back up here to our dummy quicker. We'll say that that was planned. So, that is the potency. That is spread. And we have one more that we can burn, and that is reshuffle this card back into the deck. So it is potency, spread, and cheat are the official names for these mechanics. So we can take the card of Flint, and if we use that, you can see that there's 2 here. We use the card of Flint with the blue buff. We grab, we throw our poison, we use our poison, and now we should get a card of Flint back, but we don't. I've seen this work. It doesn't always work. Okay, so we have poison. We have poison with blue. We shoot poison. We have 3 cards left. Alright, that's not poison. That's not poison either. Not poison. Yep, so I do believe this mechanic is also broken. So, I said I was going to mention... No, that's not what I expected that one to do. So let's go back for... So there's potency. And let's go grab a poison card again. Okay, so we found a poison, and we have potency equipped, or what I believe to be potency. And remember earlier I said 8 ticks at 450. Your initial shot of 900 plus 8 ticks. So if we shoot now, we get that 900 plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 ticks, and it's done. So I'm not sure, maybe it's increased critical. I'm not really sure what potency does or if it's working at all right now. So burning cards, not something I really recommend aside from spread, because putting it back in doesn't seem to work. But spread works. So if you're in a dungeon and you've got spread and you can throw a poison on it, that I think is the best use case for burning a card. Okay, so here we are. Had some technical issues with the last half of the stream, and the beta's over, so I can't be back in the game, so we're doing the talking head outro here. So the reason why the primary reason why I wanted to do this was just to go over the wrist flick, the bullet curving mechanic, and what I felt was going to be the most optimal way of doing that, because a lot of people I met in game were having issues with it, and just sort of give a high level overview of the Smuggler. This is not intended to be a full-on super in-depth how-to. As you saw, a lot of the mechanics are still up in the air. We don't really know how they're supposed to function, and beta is beta, so I kind of feel the card burning mechanic is broken. So we don't really know if these mechanics are working the way that they're supposed to. So not really a full in-depth how-to. That will probably come after Reborn has fully launched. I'll go take a look at the current implementation as of launch and do another 4 videos on each one of the classes. I haven't really been keeping up with them as they're releasing in the beta, other than just doing a live stream and going over with them, except for the Smuggler and the Paladin. I did some videos on them, but really just the mindset is they're not ready yet. There hasn't been a class balance pass. There hasn't been a lot of these other things that are going to come before release, hopefully, that will change up how these work just a little bit. And I don't want to have, a lot of videos saying one thing that people are going to reference for 5 years and it's not true. Like the very first Orbus video that I did that people still watch and people still comment on and people still complain about. I digress. Okay. So, this is not a full how-to. One thing that I do want to, complain about, because I'm good at complaining about things, is the ability info or lack thereof. So a lot of why I feel that the card mechanic is broken is just because I don't know what they're supposed to do. It was fairly easy to test for spread, but for the potency and the cheat, it was much harder to test. I definitely don't think cheat is working, regardless of which one it is. But I don't know if blue is cheat or potency, or the orange-red burn effect is cheat or potency. I imagine it makes logical sense to me that the orange-red one is potency, because power, fire, strong, it just is one of those colors you associate with, and then that leaves blue to be cheat. So that's my logical deduction, but the only thing we have to go on is a text-based blog post. There's no images in there saying this is what cheat looks like, this is what potency looks like, this is what card of ash is, this is what card of flame is. We don't have that, so we just have to guess. It's one of my biggest problems with Orbus abilities. The first few classes, it wasn't super necessary because it was very easy to figure out. The new classes, it's much more difficult, especially with Paladin and his books and Smuggler and his cards. We need some way to look and say, this card is Card of Flint. It does this effect. We need that somewhere in the game, in my opinion. This is going completely off track of the Smuggler. I'm getting up on a soapbox. I know it. I'm ranting. I'm sorry. But it's just one of the things that made this testing really, really difficult, is not knowing for sure this is the card of Flame, this is the card of Ash. And they look very similar. They're both fire related. One wasn't very, definitively Ash versus very definitively Flame, in my personal opinion. And we don't have any way in game to track it. The only thing we got to explain it was a blog post that said, text card of Flame does this thing. I'd really like to see, with the next beta, or maybe on launch day, but really more so the next beta, so we have time to test it, an in-game way to see what your abilities do. I think that is something that Orbus has been lacking for a very long time and needs to, to come up to like a big boy level. Not necessarily an insult there. It sounded like it after I said it, but that was not the intent. So, that is going to do it for my look at the Smuggler. I really enjoyed it. It's probably going to be my new main. I liked it a lot. I really wish it was a melee class that they had released as the final class. I'm not sure why they're not doing a melee class. Everybody seems to want it. My only The only thing that I can think of is that they don't want the immediate space around the mob to be clustered with all kinds of people and cause confusion and chaos. That's one thought I had. The other is that it's just technically difficult to do a melee class correctly. And they did have the Berserker at one point, and that was pretty much an abject fail with its DDR-style swinging. But there are definitely some things that they could do to improve that and make that viable. So, the next beta test, I should have an interview scheduled with Riley Dutton, aka Orbane, aka the evil dev boss that we fought this weekend, or last weekend by the time this releases. So get your questions in the comments below. Let me know what burning questions you have for Orbus, and I will get them asked. And if you've seen my previous ones, they run about an hour and a half. We just sit there and start shooting the shit and having a good time. I come with a list of 1 billion questions that I ask, and he does his damnedest to answer all of them. Very, very few times does he hide behind that wall of, I can't tell you that yet. That's no, we can't discuss that right now. Like so many other video game interviews are sort of locked behind that wall of marketing. He doesn't really, I can't recall another question where he's done that. So a lot of good information should come out of that. Be sure to stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it. Hit the notice bell so you know when I'm not sure if I'm going to do a live stream or just a video. I haven't decided on that yet. Also, let me know your thoughts and opinions on in the comments below. Make sure to like as well as subscribe. There are other ways to support the channel down in the description below. Go check them out. Cool merch store, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.